So this is Kal Kat, the Kal Katster, and shortly going to be at GalaxyCon 2026. But I decided to chime in on what's going on the show here, the thing, the show here. All right. So last winter, on November 29th, they announced that the story was moving, that they were tearing down the studio, tearing the set, and moving to here. But yes, they were moving, and most of the studio and stuff was struck. Most everything was struck, and it was like, okay, they're going to end in November, and there was the end of the shows. That the Legacy effectively ended in the middle of the year last year. Would have been technically season 2 of Legacy, but it would have been like so it would have been ending there in November, but it didn't end in November because there were still months before the actual move, and it made no sense to just put everything completely away and not use anything if there's plenty of time to do something. And so we continued after that finale thing, talking about the finale thing and how we solved the zombie LARPing troop story arc and the TMS arc and stuff like that. All in the same thing, and the Abrams arc and all that, even though we didn't address really Abrams people at all. We just had some characters represent them. And continued on. Okay, 2 weeks following that other story, we released about 2 weeks later, the Christmas Fiasco letters, under the auspice that the executive producer K.O. Dan gave the permission to do that. And I don't know what it is, but hopefully it's cool. Go ahead and do it. So there was another one previously, the Cell Map novel, sort of audio book, but done as a Star Trek story. And there was another one, but we won't go into that because it's not related to this. It's not canon with it. There was another one with a Charlie Brown figure, but they were done as Star Trek people, and that was on another channel. It wasn't really supposed to be Star Trek, so it's not canon with this. So, but there was going to be this other thing. We had scripts that we've been kicking around for some time of the at least the first couple of years of the mom letters, the Victoria Brown letters, the previous executive producer letters, my mother's letters. And the stuff that wasn't drama would make an interesting sort of sequel to the Blessings Deferred stories, which we had permission to read, air and put out with slightly different credits to take out any hearsay stuff, goofy stuff that was in the credits. So if we took that out, then it was fine. We could air it. So we did. There's a version of that we aired. Blessing Deferred, the Graham Knapp novels, as an audiobook. So the other one was done in the same vein. We had one set, one table set up, one that table, and we just decided, okay, we're going to film, it's the same table, but now we moved over here. But we're going to film on the table and do the fiasco. So we did the fiasco. The mom fiasco thing. It wasn't really a fiasco, though. I just called it that. It was Blessings Attained. It was the sequel. Just didn't want to call it Blessings Attained because that would already be taken. So, the Christmas letters thing tended to repeat itself. We only covered it roughly 2010 to 2012. Then it ends. It ends before anything got dramatic. So, but then the rest of the scripts were thrown away. With everything else that got thrown away. We didn't throw away the files for the episodes. We aired the episode in the middle of December. and went from there were 3 of them, about 90 minutes long, so sort of like the Blessings Deferred ones. And yeah, we did that. That was fairly easy to do. The way that was done was to just read a lot of text and have an action figure in front of it later on that stretched out to match each little speech they made, and as if they were a relative of the Kal Kat and whatever doing their reading about the diaries, journals. Yeah, and that worked. It was a cheap way to do it, and carried on to the other ones later. So technically, it didn't end on November 29th. It continued on to December, and December 15th was in fact there was stuff left over that needed to be done, basically. So even though they announced the show was effectively canceled or postponed, it was not actually canceled and postponed. They had some stuff left over. We had other scripts for the full. We had other scripts to continue the Space Vanguards and Canary Space, but threw them out too because they were in a weird format that wasn't readable here. And yeah, we can always reprint them if we ever want to do more of them. Probably won't. Yeah, it would just take too long to do those. I don't know if there's any precedent to do those. They're not as the spin-offs, the Canary Space and Vanguards are not as popular as the other ones. I'm not taking them down or anything. They're just not as popular as the other ones. So effectively, that season came to an end. December. There was going to be we were going to do an ambitious ship's guide, looking back on all the spaceships that we have on now they're over there, but they're all the spaceships. And we're gonna do a thing, and we're gonna do all the do a setup for all the ships, and filmed these massive ship guides. All you get to see on the channel, and it is a popular video, very popular. Is the old ship guides, because we decided not to air the ship guides, knowing how much the AI and the Groks and stuff out there like to just crib stuff and make it their own. It's not freeware, and we don't want to put up our stuff as potential freeware. Even Trek Yards doesn't do that much anymore. They put up the ships or whatever just for brief snippets, and that's it. And then they don't rip off our ship models. So we decided not to air all of them, just the one chapter. Then there was another behind-the-scenes finale thing on the 31st. That was trimmed several times, aired something else, going into the TMS Marshall Sporties stuff and all that would later become elements of an episode this season. Then in February, we left in March, so in February, I had the opportunity to continue still doing some stuff with whatever sets were left and weren't packed away. And decided that we did the 2 Carta movies, Carta 2 and 3, earlier, and we decided to do the Starship Locations Meets the Transformers 2 and 3 as well. So in February, we decided to do that. We had 2 excellent story ideas, inspired by Lexicon's episodes, and a new Junkion character in there, and so a version of the Weird Al Junkion guy, and we decided to do that with Mark's Cards, who came back to the series. It's the first time Mark's Cards had been in had anything to do with really the Transformers stuff. And he came back to do 2 or 3 voices. There's a third voice, but it's mainly he plays himself and he plays the Weird Al Junkion. And then there's a third voice where he's doing some goofy thing with there's a third other character. He came back, he did all his lines in one night, and we just added it to the movie. And it was meant to be just a part 2, but it dragged on and well, it didn't drag on. There was an ensemble, like filming these ensemble stories. It ended up becoming 3, so pushed it ahead and made it 3. Said, okay, we've got 3 hours here. We've got 3 hours of footage. Kind of what happened this season with some of my episodes as well. So split it into 2 90-minute movies. Or February. That was the finale. That was officially the finale. That was officially. So yeah, there was this sort of official and unofficial finale of the season 2. Yeah, and the promise of a move. It wasn't like how in some other shows, we won't name names specifically, have promised to be canceled or brought back, and 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 they wouldn't be. It wasn't like that. We were going to come back. The show was going to come back and do a new season of stuff when it was in the new studio. Yes. Here it is. Okay. In April, there was well-received update of the events. New set, new studio, big thing. It's a house, another house. It's a K.O. Dan house. So yeah, new studio, and so we're going to produce new Legacy and Transformers stuff, as announced on the Star Trek update and other things. The Star Trek people canceled the other thing earlier and their origin movie idea earlier and wanted to do something else with a further crew. We don't know what it is. We're suggesting that they're going to just rip off Legacy and just do that. I can see why they haven't, just because that would require them to, well, not only pay us, but also to it would require them to hire on a bunch of the actors from the Berman era of shows, like they did Picard show, and that would be expensive. If they got, say, Patrick Stewart and Anna Visitor and Avery Brooks and brought them back, and brought back Kate Mulgrew and some others, that'd be expensive. Expensive to do that. So that's why they haven't done it. That would negate the cost of the movie. That script would have to be great, really, really great. You know, they would have to knock it out of the park. They could use the Chimera script, or they go to the Q Continuum. They could do that as a movie. But if they do that, I'm the showrunner. They won't do that. but yes. So April, I was on about the movies. And starting up a new thing, there were going to be Transformer episodes, and there were going to be Chimera. Mainly, Legacy. We're going to do Transformer stuff, new Legacy stuff. Kind of going to be Elseworldy kind of things. We weren't necessarily Elseworld. Kind of like DC's Elseworld. But less so than Marvel and that stuff. We were going to kind of do some... It's not really Marvel or DC. That's just what we're calling it. It's not. It would be Paramount anyway. Now, there's a bit of a disparity if you look at the episodes when they aired. All of this season's episodes that aired, because I'm essentially the producer on these for free, and the actor. And it is difficult to proof and edit your own stuff, get it right, and you're also your own worst critic. So you're like going through this and you know, almost need 2 or 3 viewings of the unfinished product to make the product work, which is why there's a disparity between release dates and the dates on this channel, because they were released earlier than it says, but then they were pulled and fixed and re-released and re-uploaded. So a story airing on May the 4th is now May the 7th for the Companion Obsession, the season premiere, because we wanted to line it up with just saying 2403, even though we've done 2403 in 2 different universes already. This is a different 2403, and they're going to go from there. late at the end of 2402, early 2403. So closer to Legacy. Now there's another universe where all that other stuff happened, and all the Q stuff and the zombie stuff and all that happened 10 years on after the party, or 4 or 5 years on after the other incidences with the planet thing, and then 10 years on, and then whatever. So it's kind of like, okay, we're gonna follow one of those timelines. So we're following the Alexander Esteban timeline this season, and and they're sort of time core related. So they have, but it's not time core sequels. It's just time core related. Time core related. So yeah, and in the premiere episode, Companion Obsession, we deal with the Brad Ferguson book Crisis on Centaurus, as though it is a follow-up to that story. So that story kind of happened in the time of Kirk during his second 5-year mission, and now it is 100 years later, or 100 years later, and the crew go to, over 100 years later, and the crew from 2403 go to Centaurus, which Star Trek has never really tackled, except in that book. And also they go to the companion planet. They return to the companion planet when they get a distress call from Cochrane, who's apparently still there, or is turned into an energy being. Turns out, in that episode, that it's not Cochrane. It's the offspring of Cochrane and the companion that are energy beings that can assume humanoid form. But there's another race of energy beings they warn them about. It's going to attack Centaurus and try to make it like that book. The timeline's already been changed by some sort of temporal issue, so that the events of that story 100 years earlier didn't happen. And the companions want to make sure that it stays that way, whereas the bad guy ones, these other energy beings, want to stop them. Okay. Simple enough story. Elseworld type of simple story. Yeah, so that's kind of how we're going to set that up. The Transformers one kind of follows a similar vein. The Transformers episodes do their own thing with the Dinobots and stuff like that later on. And so it's similar. There's connections to them. They're done at the same time in the same place, so it's kind of this weird sort of, they can walk over to the other set and say hi to the Transformers. Or they don't, but they could. Some of them did, though. There's some cameos, especially by Earthspark people. They keep reappearing. Yes, we just loved the character of Nightshade so much. He's been in Canary Space and just reappeared in some of the other ones, and a good guy and a bad guy one too. In June, channel update in June, about stuff, mainly the movie that they changed. A bunch of other stuff. Yeah, the channel update. Just the channel. And other things. Yeah. So then they continued into the summer, in the middle of summer, with mainly that one's connected to Starfleet Academy. The show that a lot of the hater fans didn't like, because it was too much like 90210, but you consider that Strange New Worlds is Starfleet Academy as well, even though it shouldn't be. And then Strange New Worlds, the characters act like they're in the Academy and they're on a ship. They shouldn't act like that. Whereas in the Academy one, they act a little more stiff. So they should act like that on Strange New Worlds. I realize the three groups that make current Star Trek are related. They filmed a lot of that in Canada, I think Toronto and some other places. And they do that. And Tawny Newsome had something to do with one of the actors from Lower Decks. Has something to do with the Academy. We won't go into that. We just won't. And so I decided that I would do an episode about To Struggle the Stars, which was one of the titles was for Aspera. One of the title episodes of the Academy. They have it wrong. It's set in 3196 or thereabouts, the distant future. If they've changed the logo since then, now that is that one. So we decided to explore that. I decided that it would be a cool idea to have Mark's Cards is still a consultant every Thursday, right, over the FaceTime. So yes, he's still around. That's yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. And the main cast of keeps go back to the cast, see some of them first Sunday of every week. So on the train. So yeah, there's that. It's like the show hasn't stopped. Um, so we have yeah, but there are no voice actors on this. It's all Kal Kat doing all the voices, all Kal Kat doing anything controversy. If there is any drama, it's Kal Kat doing everything. So it's one guy doing with the action figures in the studio Go Motion. Yeah. So yeah, we did. I remember the Starfleet Academy logo was for Science the Stars. So for Science the Stars and for Struggle the Stars were the two episodes. Through Struggle the Stars was first, and Through Knowledge the Stars was second. So there were these. It was kind of a. I think that was the case. Another case of. We filmed 3 hours of footage and basically made it 90 minutes. 90-minute ones. That's what happened. It was going to be 3 hours and then we broke it up to two episodes. It flowed better that way. Yeah. Just like the Transformer one where we did that with the Transformers Origins, Prime's Origins thing, Decepticon War story arc. That was a two-parter, very similar to that we did, based on the further lexicons of stories. There was a new season of that. Did a whole new season of that. Oh, there was like another 3 hours, so we just separated it into 90-minute segments again. And then another two to finish off the last one. Yeah, so there was like the first and the last one. Yeah, so there's like 3 hours of Transformers, and then there's another 3 hours of Transformers. So there were 6 altogether. Different Transformers things this season, as well as the Chimera at the same time. Yeah, studio's been busy. So yeah, a little bit of a break here. A little bit. There's an update on the stars of Star Trek. The stars, as in stellar objects of Star Trek, inspired by the earlier version of it. I was gonna say some inspired by other stars. Yes. Sure. Because Star Trek stars are weird, and they just used names they thought sounded cool. The Bear designations and the Arabic designations and the Greek designations for everything, not knowing that some of those are real and most of those are red giants and blue giants. Yeah, we've been over that. So that was in June as well, in the summer. Then we rolled around to June and July, where we finally got around to a 60th anniversary special. Star Trek is 60 years old this year, and like we did 10 years earlier. And the Chimera was supposed to be the 50th anniversary thing in 2016. But it didn't come out for 3 more years, so it's 53rd. So, yeah. But that's fine. It was just late, 53rd. Instead of 53rd. That's fine. But ever since then, we've been doing consistent Trek fan films with Go Motion figures, so much they noticed over it. The show did a Muppet Trek. Ours aren't Muppets though. They're little action figures, Playmates figures. They're not Muppets. We do it right. No, we've been doing this for 6 years, so 7 years. And so yeah, the 60th anniversary where we reminisce about the older surviving older cast, the surviving old Next Generation cast, and all the other casts they made action figures out. Did a special sort of a pseudo Adamicon contest thing, figuring we couldn't possibly get to a convention this summer. That's what we figured. So we just did our own but yeah. The movie update was in July. So yeah. Oh yeah, the movie update was in July, which they said that the other movie would be different as well. The movie update. Let's see. Okay, and then a bunch of stuff in August was taken down and reposted just recently because it was originally intended to be a trilogy. Well, no, it wasn't. Originally, it was intended to be a one-off, where we finally dealt with the full story of that silly 10-year-old Gemelt story. Doing a Gemelt story, a full-on expose Gemelt story thing. Which, from your perspective, you've just seen this because we released it. But also, we were going to tackle this very old Stardate Zero thing. Story has been kicking around for years. The next generation Stardates technically start in 2323 in January. If you go back and you just subtract 410000, which is 2364, and you subtract 40 years, what do you get? Yeah, 24. Yeah, because it's 41000. So yeah. It is currently, and then it would be currently 800000. It'd be 2403 right now. So yeah, early 2403. Anyway, so yeah, Stardate Zero. I then did 2 other stories about that, and decided to do this one as well. But make it a Gemelt story, where Gemelt wants to pitch to Cadet Picard, and that's what starts Stardate Zero. That to reset all the Stardates. Well, actually, what it is Starfleet already reset them, caused a temporal anomaly to happen that spread through the future. And he took advantage of that. The Cillian with powers and went back and messed with. So it is a time travel, but Q is involved, so you can change it. Change it back. Yeah, so we did that. Yeah. And recently re-released that 12 days later because it needed some work. And they kept putting out these episodes without really checking them, making sure they're polished and nice. And it is a good episode. It's just that it needed work. The other 2, which are the season finale of this season, before we jump into September, technically the season finale of the 3rd season, because usually a season starts in September, but it's year-round here, so... But yeah, it's technically supposed to be there. Oh yeah, and there's no gap there. So technically, technically, it doesn't matter. It's still Legacy. So basically, the Uncharted thing was supposed to be something separate, and then there was going to be like 2 more of those. It was going to be like a trilogy of Uncharted. But the Marshall Sportiest story became the plot of the other 2. The Marshall Sportiest one was going to be originally just 90 minutes, but it ended up way longer. It ended up 2 segments, roughly 90 minutes. So it's 3 hours. They cut it down. Again, we used a combination of new footage and old footage with new video from our characters on set. So it's really odd. Yeah, we wanted to put the whole TMS thing to rest. We wanted to have the whole thing, and why not have the mid-August 41st anniversary of the Marshall Sporties group coming to California as the backdrop, and have the zombies reappear as having been cured, and some of them show up to help out on the Sebulba. So some of them do show up. So it is the interdimensional future and past. For 2403 meeting a little bit later on, meeting as a result of that Stardate Zero thing, which leads into these other 2 ones. They were originally going to be an Uncharted trilogy. But then we decided just recently, days ago, No, that makes no sense. Make it Legacy. Put it in season 3. Make the 2 martial sportist episodes the finale, because that makes more sense. Yeah, don't they weren't. No one wanted to watch them when they were just another story with Uncharted thrown on. It doesn't make sense. It's not his story. He's just mentioned. The Kamal guy just mentioned in that one episode. The other 2 have nothing to do with him. So if you make it all be, you know, Legacy, then it works. And all this minutia is not terribly important for understanding this season, which has been all sorts of interesting different things. Uh, Red Letter Media was talking about the status of Star Trek. Steve Shives are talking about the status of Star Trek. Both groups seem to agree, and also that Jesse Gender in there was also talking about it. They all seem to agree that a Star Trek that's not all about space battles, not all about a supervillain con guy showing up again, not all about a universe-destroying weapon or a space burn or whatever. It's about just people doing things that becomes an allegory for human nature, but it's on a colony planet or some sort of climate thing or some sort of disaster on the planet they got to solve or something. That's more interesting. Yeah, we've done that. We also did that in the Transformers story. So we're doing that right now. Our fan films. Doing stuff like that. We're having like, okay, they're not necessarily malevolent supervillains that have messed with the planets and stuff, but they haven't messed with the whole universe. It's just a planet. See, this is a lot easier, more easy to grasp. It's a planet. Yeah. And so the only reason I'm doing this like update, that's kind of what this is, an update, is that as we continue with the next season, we've got to go to we get to go to a convention. So we get to go to GalaxyCon, and this year. So yes, going to the GalaxyCon. We had to do something for the 60th anniversary. We're going to GalaxyCon. There will be Kal Kat, Silly Kelly, and Clint Cowpoke. It's going to go down there. So yeah. Well, actually, it's just Kal Kat playing roles. But yeah, so currently they just happen to coincide. But we're not going to suddenly decide we're going to do an episode where they go to Andromeda, do the Gamelt thing. We're not actually going to do that. But I've thought of something from way back. The way back stuff seems to be popular. I haven't quite fleshed out. Well, there's a train ride, so I can flesh it out. The premise of the story and what the characters do in it. I did rebuild some of the set that had been sitting there for a while because it had been unused, the figures. Because I wanted to redo the bridge thing so it looks more futuristic, or at least kind of. So I'm not really sure exactly what's going to happen. It probably is going to be a slightly later than 2403 story, just to make it later on, because it's meant as the premiere. It's meant as the it'll be technically airing on the 60th anniversary of Star Trek. So that'll be cool. That's probably when it'll come out. And hopefully it will be screened beforehand so that it won't be immediately taken down like a day later. But yes, so all this season, celebrating this season, all 60th anniversary Star Trek. All this season. And if we do it right, we did that for all the other the past 7 years. We've done something for the anniversary. But yeah, it's the anniversary. You got to do something. Here, So yeah, we were doing fan films way back. Yeah, but with action figures and no profit. When we get any profit? Oh yeah, sets are getting a little ragged there. Yeah, so I don't necessarily make the sets yet. I want to make them look so much like the actual real ones that there wouldn't be confusion, but I like it the way it is. If they become so ratty that we build new ones and we build new ones, I want to be able to still store them, evenly. There's a way to store them. Yeah. And so that's it. Yeah. So far for the update.